and welcome to the Strong Style Syndicate. This is the Bi-Conics podcast show where we talk about NJPW, New Japan Pro Wrestling, and the goodness that it brings to us. And more specifically, in this episode, we are going to be talking about NJPW Resurgence. Now, the other person that's joining me, it has a very, very interesting tie with Resurgence because he was there live.
Hi, peoples. No, I'm excited to talk about Resurgence with you, Adolfo. This is a very fun show, and I'm actually excited to be able to get a chance to give my personal insights in the sense because I was there. Well, I wasn't there alone because I was also there with Mama Laguillo. So we had a really fun experience, which I'm sure we'll get into as we go along with this. But yeah, it was a good time. I hope they bring it back next year to Ontario, California, so we can go again.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, wrestling shows are always just so much better live. But yeah, so NJPW Resurgence. Also, we do have to point out that the best of the Super Junior tournament is also going on right now as well. We will talk about that a little bit at the end, but for right now, we're going to talk about Resurgence. And our first preview match of the night, which was also the first preview match at the live show, correct?
But yeah, no pomp and circumstances, no nothing. Like 6:30 rolled around and we just jumped straight into everything. I was like, all right then.
Nice. And this was for the Strong Survivor match, which had Alan Breeze versus CJ Tino. The winner of this match would be showcased at the next big NJPW Dominion, I believe it is, the next big NJPW show. So this was a hard fought match. It was a very, very strong style. Both individuals wrestled very well. In the end, our winner
cheeky dinner.
Our winner was CJ Tino. A very good preview match on the TV. The only thing that bothered me a little bit was the audio, but that's beside the point. How did it look from your end?
So this is where the night starts off, right? So me and Mama Laguillo get to our seats. We're chilling for a little bit. And then, the show starts. So we get this match. I think this was a really fun, as we come to learn from the last one, from Windy City Riot, the Strong Survivor, match is somebody who is going to, like you said, get shown at the New Japan shows coming up very shortly. So CJ Tino, of course, he's the one that he is now currently carrying on this Strong Survivor as he won the match at Windy City Riot. And he's here back again trying to defend it against, Alan Breeze, who's trying to. I thought this was a very good standard, basics of strong style match as well, if that makes any sense. So these folks are trained in the strong style, but they're not to the level where they've been doing this for years. But I still thought it was a pretty good one. There was lots of good chops. There was lots of, great moves all around. I just thought this was a fun opener. This is pretty solid.
Yeah, Tino and Breeze had great chemistry together. It was, like you said, it wasn't anything super flashy, but it was a good, solid match, which is, I think, is perfectly fine for a preview show. Now, had you and Mama Laguillo gotten the surprise for the night by this point, or were you still in the cheap seats?
So I will put this out there. It wouldn't be until we started off with the first match or at least like a third of the way through the first official match of the main card before we got our surprise.
Okay, so you're still in the cheap seats. Okay, cool. Our next, there is a preview match actually came as a surprise where we did have a Bea Priestley literally fresh off her 90-day no action clause or whatever the hell.
Non-compete, yeah.
Yeah, non-compete that the wrestlers, but literally it was the 90th day and she was here. She issued an open challenge, and who answered it? None other than Viva Van, who is the newly crowned Vietnam champion, I believe.
Vietnamese, yeah.
Yeah, the Vietnamese pro wrestling champion. So congratulations, Viva Van, on that. And so this is kind of how the match started. Viva B was like, nope, and drop kicked her. So the winner of this match she hit her finisher move, which is called the Plan B, and then got the 1-2-3 pin on Viva Van. I kind of figured this was going to be a match where they were, I guess, dare I say, reintroducing everyone to Bea Priestley. So, they wanted to give her a match to put her over. Not saying that it was a cakewalk. Viva Van gave her a very hard fight. There were some big hits I mean, we've seen Viva Van not only in NJPW, but AEW and CMLL. So we know that this girl can go. And, some big hits, some great spots. I believe they had some pretty good chemistry as well. But yeah, like I said, B comes out with the win in this. And I guess we're going to be seeing her at the next NJPW show. How did it look from your end, Mikey?
So it is no secret that I'm a big fan of Bea Priestley. I've always been, whether it was her in Stardom or, going by Blair Davenport in WWE and now going back to being Bea Priestley here in New Japan. I am so excited that she's back. And I do like the fact that Viva got to be her kind of return to Japanese strong style opponent, which is really great. Viva Van's been popping up all over the place.
Yeah.
As much as I love Viva, as soon as I saw her come out for the open challenge, I was just like, yeah, B's gonna beat her up, and beat her up she did. But it was still a pretty solid match. This was a lot of fun. Now, this match was great, but what we got in like the scrum afterwards, where we're backstage with all the backdrops and everything, has me even more interested too, especially when we talk about later on what main evented. So I'm going to bring that up when we talk about the main event of Resurgence.
All right. This finishes the pre-show, and now we get into the main show of Resurgence, where we get a match, dare I say, a mentor versus mentee match, where Fred Rosser, the mentor, faces off against Matt Vandegrift, his mentee. There was a little bit of buildup to this where Matt Vandegrift had disrespected Fred Rosser, flipped him off, and then Fred Rosser came back and said that he was going to break that middle finger. So did he? Well, we're here to tell you. Fred Rosser didn't break the middle finger, but what he did do was sink a really deep cross-face submission hold on Matt Vandegrift, making Matt Vandegrift submit. So Fred Rosser did get the W in this match. From the at-home TV side, this was a really good match. Dare I say, a lot better than I thought it was going to be. Both these wrestlers, being mentor-mentee, they really knew each other. They really danced well with each other. You could tell that Fred was definitely the strong style person. Matt Vandegrift had more of, as the kids call it, the flippy dips going on. It was beautiful. It was beautifully done. Matt Vandegrift would go for do that thing where he would go for a kick. Fred would catch his foot, and then Matt would do like a flipping, a lot of stuff on the outside. Matt Vandegrift, he hit first, and he hit very fast, had a very strong offense at the beginning. Fred Rosser, comes back and just starts laying into him. We had the fight going out in the audience. Mikey, did you have any sweat or spit? Well, no, you were still in the no, you were down now, right? For this?
Yes. So we get about I wouldn't even say a third. I would say a fourth as well. So we were about a fourth through the way through the match, and then we got the surprise where, me and Mama Laguilla were chilling in our seats, and, one of the, workers at the arena be like, hey, so I came down here to ask you if you guys wanted to get free upgraded tickets to the floor. But she told us that, if we didn't like the seats we were at on the floor, we could always come back to our seats. And I'm like, hey, you know what? We said to ourselves, this rarely happens to us as well. So why not? Let's see how it goes. So I'm very aware as to why they do this, because there were still some empty seats on the floor. And of course, since this was being streamed, they need to pack out the on the floor, for the camera and everything. So, all that's there. So I'm thinking, when we go down there and we start walking down to the floor, I'm thinking to myself, you know what? Brain. We're going to be put all that stuff. We kept getting closer and closer to the ring until we were literally, there were two individuals in front of us, and then in front of them was the barricade. So I'm like, oh my gosh, we are here. This is crazy. So we spent the rest of the night at ringside, basically.
So my question then is, did you get any Rosser Vandegrift spit or sweat tossed upon you?
Surprisingly, no.
That were did they come? Because when they came out to the audience, did they come out close to where you were at, or were they on the
they
other
went
side?
On the other side.
Oh, okay. All right. So yeah. So like I said, Fred Rosser comes out with the submission win. Also, I got to give a shout out to Matt Vandegrift for slapping Fred Rosser's bald head. That seems to be the thing wrestlers are doing against bald wrestlers now, is slapping the bald heads with disrespect. But yeah. exciting first match. It got me amped for the rest of the show. Our second match, though, is one that's near and dear to our hearts because it has our boy Templario. So it was the West Coast world class wrecking crew of Jarrell Nelson and Royce Isaacs versus the United Empire newly made member Templario TJP for the Strong Open Tag Team Championship. I will tell you what, if this was, and I apologize because I wasn't able to watch anything previously on NJPW. So if Templario and TJP had matches beforehand, I didn't see them. When they came into this ring, though, they looked like a tag team, which I thought was super impressive because a lot of time Templario comes from CMLL, and when he's down there, even though he does have the occasional like trios match, a tag team match, he is mostly a singles competitor. So, and we have seen a lot of times when two single competitors come together, that doesn't necessarily mean they make a great tag team. These two look like they've been together for years. I was amazed at just the cooperation and the communication that they had with each other. You know, world-class wrecking crew, no slouch by any means. Nelson and Isaacs, and they gave it to the United Kingdom. Definitely slowing down TJP and Templario. You could tell that TJP and Templario were the more agile of the two. But in the end, we do get, thanks to a very smart and quick reversal by Templario to get TJP on top, we have new Strong Open Tag Team Champions in TJP, the United Kingdom. Mikey, did Templario get close enough that you could sniff him, and would Papa also be jealous?
Maybe not close enough to sniff him, but I did take pictures and send them to Papa Oso, so he was extremely jealous. It was really great.
Good.
As far as this match goes, yeah, United Empire getting the tag titles were great as well. I love TJP. Templario is great. This was a very strong back and forth, and the crowd was definitely into this one as well. You know, with Best Coast Wrecking Crew allowed, TJP and Templario to capitalize and pin Jarrell Nelson for the victory.
Yep.
So this was a lot of fun. I really, really enjoyed this, and I'm happy that Templario and TJP are going to be our strong openweight champions forever, how long they hold these titles.
Yeah, definitely. The only complaint I would have, and I feel like this is a thing that I'm going to have whenever our CMLL talent goes elsewhere to wrestle, it did kind of feel like we had Templario light. Because watching CMLL, we know he can fly. One of his finishers is at the Arena Mexico. They have this big runway leading up to the ring, and Templario will go out on that runway and then come running in and do like this jumping 450 on top of people. And we have seen him do amazing rope work. So, he not as much rope work. We definitely saw the more strong style in him. Not saying that he didn't do some high angle stuff. I'm just saying the man can fly. So don't be fooled. The man can fly. So, but yes, we have our new strong openweight tag team champs in the United Kingdom. Bringing us to our next match. What a fun match this was. So this was an 8-man tag team match. Previously at Windy City Riot, we got this very mysterious promo cut by Matthew and Nicholas Jackson calling out the Bullet Club War Dogs and like saying that they would meet them at Resurgence and they were going to bring these mystery people for this 8-man tag, which it turned out that the mystery individuals was the Good Brothers of Doc Gallows and Carl Anderson, going up against Gabe Kidd, David Finlay, Clark Connors, and Ghetto, which I believe Gabe Kidd had a very busy weekend because wasn't he also at the MLP as well?
Yeah, so Resurgence was on Friday. Gabe Kidd was over in Canada Saturday evening as he was part of that triple threat between him, Michael Oku, and Speedball Mike Bailey.
Crazy. Getting a lot of Gabe Kidd, which is awesome. But from the get-go, this match was pandemonium in the best way possible. Mikey, did any of these guys get close to you? Because they were all over the place.
Oh, absolutely. I actually had a grandma kid was fighting with one of the Jacksons right past us. As soon as the match started, everybody went into the separate corners of the ring and the barricades were open. Gabe Kidd, I believe, took Matthew and were beating him up on the aisle next to us. It was crazy.
That's fantastic. The match was brought back to the ring, and that's when the Young Bucks do, and they were high flying. It's as if the Young Bucks had the home crown advantage, Mikey. Oh, why would that be?
It's no secret that the Young Bucks are hometown boys. They were born and grew up in Rancho Cucamonga, which is within the same area as Ontario, California. So this is a lot of fun. It was really fun to see the Good Brothers back in action. I think this was a good pandemonium. Gabe Kidd cutting a whole entire promo in the middle of the match was amazingly hilarious.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
In the end, we do get the Good Brothers and the Young Bucks getting the win over Bullet Club War Dogs. My other question was at the end of that match, I saw Matthew and Nicholas going out and hugging some people. Mikey, did you get a Young Buck hug? You're muted.
Sorry. I thought about it, but because there were so many people at the barricade, and I'm not the type of person to kind of fight my way through, but it was really nice though. And I think that's something about being at a live show, especially that close, that most people don't get to see or understand, is that, underneath the characters that all these people play, they truly do love the experience. Like the Young Bucks made sure to get pictures and video. And actually somebody brought, I think, Nicholas a painting and like a small little art painting. And, he was so cool about it and everything. It was really fun. It was really, really sweet. I loved it so much. It's fun always reminding ourselves as wrestling fans is like, oh no, these people actually love what they do. And it's really nice when people take the time, especially after matches, to still do those things. So it was a lot of fun to see that.
Yeah, my introduction, we're going to just do this real quick. My introduction to the Young Bucks came towards the end of their Young Buck as they turned into the whole EVP. So for the most part, I've known them as heels, and they do a good job at it because I hate their guts as the EVPs. However, in this match, they seemed completely different. Like you said, they seemed like they were having fun. They seemed like they were at home, and playing to the home crowd. Having performed for a home crowd, it does definitely hit differently. So I get that. It was a great match. Dare I say that this match and the tag team match that we had were definitely more a mix of strong style and lucha, because the upcoming matches I felt were just straight up strong style, especially this one where we have one Stone Pitbull Tomohiro Ishii facing off against Drilla Maloney for the strong open weight championship. And Kazawi, did we get some hits in this? Man, I will admit for a minute, and I don't know if you saw this in the live, being in the live crowd there, Mikey, but it was a good strong style match. It just a bunch of hard hits being traded back and forth. Yeah. What do you got, Mikey?
So I want to talk about this match from two different perspectives, right? At least in terms of the wrestlers involved in this. Of course, when I saw this on the card, I already figured this was going to be a hard hitting because, of course, this is the Stone Pitbull, Ishii. He's known for that kind of stuff. So that was fantastic. And, we got exactly what we expected out of Ishii, which isn't a bad thing. It's him doing, what we know him for, like chopping the chest, brain busters left and right, everybody and they mama getting one in this match. Dare I say, I think this was probably a momentum kind of upward momentum type of match. And what I mean by saying that is I think this was a strong outing from Drilla to kind of see how far he's progressed in the 5 years. And that's because of how solid this match was. I was like, okay, I see you, Drilla. I think that I would not be surprised within the next year or so that we see New Japan put a title on Drilla, because this was actually a really solid star-making performance for him, because I think this is the cleanest and the strongest that I've ever seen him within the last 5 years of keeping up with New Japan. This is really great for Drilla. I love this match. Of course, Ishii walks out with the championship, but Drilla walked out with a big fan in me, and also really showcasing how far he's come within the last couple of years, which is really nice to see.
Yeah, definitely. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I did see actually some good sportsmanship in that They shook hands at the end.
So I didn't necessarily see these two shake hands, but I did see the next match. It was the shake hands part at the
Right,
very
right,
end.
right. But yeah, Ishii retains. And then this brings us to our next match, which was for the Never Openweight Championship. Konosuke Takeshita versus one ELP El Fantasma. And wow, this was electrifying. And I hope that that tagline is used in the blurb for the YouTube cut that we do for this. But yeah, this match was awesome. You know, it was again rooted in strong style, but and they are big men that know how to move, and they moved really well. You know, we had a lot of back and forth at the end there. Our Rocky Romero, the best Rocky Romero, caused a little shenanigans, which I feel caused El Fantasma to lose the match, having Konosuke Takeshita retain the Never Openweight Championship. But at the end, we did see a respect between these two, you know, and a handshake. This was a great match. This was definitely one of those matches that afterwards I needed a cigarette.
You got the wet in the willies, so to speak.
I was just exhausted. I was physically fighting with them, and I'm at the end, I'm like, okay, we're
okay. So like, you can tell me if I'm off my rocker, but like, I feel the same way as you did because I was watching the whole thing, but I felt through every strike, everything that they did, every power bomb, every spear, every jump off the rope. It resonated throughout the ring. I was like, I feel this in my soul. This is kind of crazy of how hard they're going. First and foremost, Rocky Romero. Hey, you know what? Not to sound bad, I was like, most Latino men are short anyway. So I was like, I was no surprise he was short. Surprisingly, his frame is very small, which kind of threw me off guard a little bit. I was like, he has kind of a small frame. And I was very close to it. Dare I say, I think this was, I don't want to say best match. Best match is not the worst, but this is the one I screamed the most at because of how much fun I was having. And I think for me personally, too, why I was so invested in this match, I mean, first of all, it's Takeshita. Of course, I feel like there has, so far in 2025 and even in 2024, Takeshita has never had a bad match no matter where he goes. He always ends up having amazing matches with different opponents of different styles, which is great. But I think what made this match the most fun for me personally, and we've talked about it before, you know, when we started doing New Japan Fully this year at Wrestle Kingdom, is that ELP match at Wrestle Kingdom was a surprise because he had left for a couple months towards the tail end of 2024, because as we know, he had to go and fight and beat cancer, which thankfully he's in remission. I have been following ELP for so long. I forgot that he was this good in the ring. I mean, we've seen glimpses here and there over the last couple of months, but I feel that this is the return to form I think ELP has needed since returning from his battle with cancer and going into remission and all of that, because him and Takeshi tore the house down on this one.
Yeah,
and I think what makes Rocky Romero really great as like kind of this heel-ish manager for is that unlike some other promotions where we see managerial characters, it was more of an addition and it didn't really take away from the overarching narrative of what was going on in the ring. And Rocky being there caused some thorns in the side for ELP, but it didn't take away from a lot of the momentum of the match or did take away from what ELP and Takeshita were doing in there. It was a lot of fun. And you know what? I told this to Mama Laguillo after the match was over, and she agreed with me. I would love to see these two run it back again.
Oh, totally. That'd be fantastic. Yeah.
This was the most, I mean, I enjoyed every single match, but this was the one where I was up out my seat yelling all the time. But shout out to that lady too, when ELP jumped, from the ring into the audience, and she was and she got caught in the crossfire, which was so good. She was all having a great time with it. And then Rocky Romero and Takeshita checking on her too, which was really nice as well.
Yeah. And then Rocky Romero gets put through a table.
Which, you know what, I love to see. It was fantastic. And what I loved about this match even more, and this is what Mama Laguillo pointed out too, is that mutual sign of respect, because at the end, even though ELP lost and Takeshita won, they still shook hands as ELP was leaving, and they caught it on camera. So Takeshita's just living his best life. I know he plays a heel character, but every time I see him, wrestling in all these other promotions, I get a little emotional because I see how hard he's trying to fight from not crying in the middle of the States, whether it be in Japan. Like, he loves this business, and I'm excited for his future. Give it to me later, but I need a rematch.
Yeah, you definitely get to see that 11-year-old kid whose dream was to wrestle in the big matches, living his best life. Got love Takeshita. Love Takeshita. So speaking of love, if you love the wrestlings, you should follow us for more wrestling actions. We are on the social medias, Instagram, Blue Sky. If you like them videos and the actual podcast things, you can find us on YouTube, on Twitch. Also, you listen to the podcasts in your ear holes. You can find us there at BC WrestlePod. We got brand new merch, which has been linked in the chat, but that is bcwrestlepodshop.fourthwall.com. And then if you really want to help us out and you got a little bit of cheddar to spare, you go ahead and join us on Patreon. We have all the goodies that to offer you over on Patreon, some behind the scenes looks and whatnot. So, and speaking of which, upcoming this week, today is the 12th. So we had our backlash review earlier on. So once you're done with this, go check that out.
Go watch the replay. We had a fifth person do a run-in spot. Our good friend Nick came on for 10 minutes and we broke down, open backlash and all that. It was a good time.
Nice. Tomorrow we have the AEW Ensemble. They're going to be going over the AEW goodness that's been going on lately.
Yep.
On Wednesday, we have NXT Los and the CMLL Los Lobos de Lucha later that night. On Thursday, this is another 5-6 day a week, which we said we were going to ease it up after Mania. Wrong. We have our Maple Leaf Wrestling.
Yep. Me and Will, also known as the Flannel Fighters, as we've called our review team.
Flannel Fighters.
We are going to be reviewing Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling's Northern Rising, in which not only do we get some fun matches, we got to see a lot of the New Japan talent that was involved in here or there, because Gabe Kidd was in it, the Bullet Club War Dogs, and the Good Brothers were involved in it as well. But on top of that, this show is also important because now we have our inaugural MLP men's and women's champions as well. So it's great.
Nice. And then on Friday, we'll close this week out with our TNA review. And that is our week. So we got a lot of stuff coming up. Please check all that out. But stay here because we are now getting to our dual main event for NJPW Resurgence. In our first one, we see Hiroki Goto, our champion, the IWGP World Heavyweight Champion, facing off against Zack Sabre Jr., the greatest technical wrestler alive. I will die on that hill. This was a really fun match. You could tell that there was a lot of animosity between the two, and that came out in the ring. I feel I saw a side of Zack Sabre Jr. that I haven't seen, in that he seemed very dumbfounded, if you will, and very flustered almost. Spoilers, Hiroki Goto does retain his championship belt. Zack Sabre Jr. not happy about that. Actually kicks away Hiroki Goto's hands and leaves the ring area in a very heel fashion. But I thought this was a very, very great match. A lot of good action. What'd you think, Mikey?
So I think this was a really good match. And upon being there live, the whole entire crowd was very dumbfounded when we got the double pin, which caused Goto to still retain his championship, which is really, really interesting to say. So I thought about this and I was just like, you know what? This is going to be interesting. So at first I was like, I don't know how I feel about this ending, but then I thought about it because of everything that we got afterwards, right? So Zack being visibly upset by the decision, going after the ref, kicking Goto's hand when the shaken, and storming out of the ring. So while Zack is not a complete 100 baby face in the terms, like he leans towards like the tweener role, leaning more to good, I think I hope to see this is where it leads back to Zack being the heel that I was introduced to in New Japan, where he's just where he's a young punk, it's like his, the TNDK theme says, and just be a punk and just is absolutely decimating and kicking people and just being aggressive. I am happy to see Goto retain the championship because his run is still going to be going on. But again, when I talk about it in the news a little bit later, because Goto retained the championship, we now know who's going to face the next challenger for that title at Dominion, because everything that got set up in Japan prior to Resurgence. But more on that on the news brief.
That's right. Do you think we're going to be getting Goto Saber Jr. Part 3?
I think eventually we might. I don't think we are going to right now. But hey, you know what? I am not a booker in New Japan, so only time will tell.
Fair. So finally, this brings us to our main event, and I'll be honest, this was my match of the night, where we have Azumi and Mina facing off against your strong women's champion, Mercedes Moné, in a fatal 3-way. And I wasn't expecting this ending. Azumi, our favorite little Stardom star, rising star, whatever. I know she's not rising because she's been in this business for a while, but I just got introduced to her, so she's rising to me. Azumi is our new strong women's championship. Mikey, try to tell me this wasn't the match of the night.
I will plead the fifth. So, okay. Did I enjoy this match? Absolutely. I got to not only see Mercedes outside of AEW, which is great. I also got to see Mina, who I loved since Stardom, and Azumi, same thing. I've been following the Stardom girls for a little bit now, and I'm excited to see this. I will say this was a phenomenal match, and I really enjoyed this, but I still think for me personally, ELP and Takeshita was probably my match where I was screaming the most, but this was also great too. But I think what also this does, because, and again, this is conspiracy brain working right now, conspiracy hat. Mike El Jefe working. I think because New Japan has a working relationship in AEW, I honestly think this match not only gave us Azumi as our new strong women's champion, which is well deserved because of how much she's been put in the work for New Japan, both in and Stardom, for both in Japan and in the States for the last year and a half, that she is the 5th champion for this title, which is kind of crazy that this has only had 5 champions be a part of this lineage and legacy, which is great. And Azumi, I think, is going to do really well to fit in with the legacy of Mercedes and Willow. And now she's moving to the States full time. I would not be surprised if Mina and Mercedes is like a feud that kicks off Mina's tenure in AEW now that she's here full time. But yeah. I also love, and I know some people give her grief, I actually really love Mercedes' overreaction to losing the championship. I was like, yeah, because she's been Mercedes. It was great. She's been Mercedes 4-belt. And now we are starting to see her, now that she's lost one of her titles, I'm interested to see in all the promotions that she's champions and how it's going to affect her. Is she going to start doubting that she's going to be able to keep TBS championship? Is she going to be able to keep the Rev Pro Women's United Kingdom championship? So I think this is now we have somewhere to go, as the professor would say. Now that Mercedes has kind of gotten knocked down a little bit off of her pillar of being Mercedes 4-belt, and now that she's Mercedes 3-belts, now we have somewhere to go with her character. But this was a really fun match, but my match of the night, no, but I understand why it would be yours and everybody else's, because it was still a lot of fun too. And again, Azumi is going to have her work cut out for her because of everything that happened backstage when the cameras went off from the pay-per-view.
Yes. So I will agree. The first third of the match did take a little bit to establish itself, but I felt the back 2/3 of the match was, I will still say that this was my match of the night, probably because Azumi won the championship, and I love it when the underdog wins a belt. Do we think, having said what you said, that now we have somewhere to go with Mercedes Moné, and not to get too far into it, but do you think this is now going to be starting the downfall of Mercedes Moné?
Possibly. It could be. I mean, yeah. Stay tuned for tomorrow's review to hear our thoughts more in depth about who might possibly be her downfall.
There we go. Azumi, she's, that they allow her to hold on to it for a while. That way she can have a reign like a Mercedes, like you said, or so that her name can go down as one of the greats that held that belt. So, all right. So that's the end of Resurgence. So really quick, the Best of the Super Junior 32 is going on right now. I'll be 100% honest. I have only been able to watch halfway through the May 10th show. I'm going to get caught up, and we're going to talk after we're done a little bit about what we're going to do for Best of the Super Junior, because I believe it is something that should be talked about. What I will bring up really quick are the three preview matches that we had on May 10th. Just really quick, I want to touch on them. Our first match was Ninja Mac versus Robbie X, Taiji Ishimori, and In this one, we had Mari with a crossbody lock. Really fun match. When I originally heard NJPW, this was the type of NJPW I thought I was going to get, all the time. So not saying that it's a bad thing of what I've gotten, but I was really happy to see the Japanese talent going at it. I love how vocal they are. I love the audience. It's such a cool feel. This was a really fun match. The next preview match from May 10th that there was Tiger Mask and Shomo Kato versus Kevin Knight. Now in the AEW, Kevin Knight, Ryusuke Taguchi, and Master Wato. At the end, we did get Master Wato a German suplex on Kato for the 1-2-3 pin. Another really great match, another really fun match, really fast match. Great to see. Our last match was Yo and Toru Yano versus Robbie Eagles and Hartley Jackson of TMDK. This was a very comical match. The Yowie was strong with this match. Let me tell you what. And really quick on a sidebar, I didn't get a chance to look up what they call, but in Japan for the Grand Sumo Association, that's the big wrestling, the big sumo association that they have in Japan. Those tournaments run every other month. In between that, the Grand Sumo Association, they have their Yokozuka, and they do like emotional tours around Japan. And in this tour, one of the things they have is actually a comedy sumo match. Again, I wasn't able to look up what it's called, but this match reminded me very much of that type of match. There was a lot of tongue-in-cheek stuff going on, like when Toru Yano comes in and he thinks he's facing Robbie Eagles, but instead it's Harley Jackson in there, and he's like, and he's like scared of the big guy. It was very funny, very entertaining. In the end, I apologize. Yo and Toru Yano do get the win because Toru Yano hits a low blow on Hartley Jackson while the back was turned, so they get the win on that. So stay tuned. We are going to be updating the Best of the Super Junior 32. And with that, we come to our news segment. Take it away, Mikey.
So I only have a little bit of an announcement. So as Adolfo has said, we are going to talk to figure out how we are going to cover the Super Juniors. So it might end up being the same way as we decided to cover the G1 later this summer, but we'll talk about that later. But as far as the news goes for all of this, for New Japan and stuff like that, because of everything that happened at Resurgence, we do have a couple of more matches officially made for Dominion, which is going to be the next New Japan show that we are going to be covered. So now we are going back to the Land of the Rising Sun for Dominion, which takes place on Sunday, June 15th, which means that depending on, time zones and everything, either we will be watching this on our own, or if Adolfo and I decide if we think we can manage a very late watch along, not streaming it, but just us two, we can, but we'll figure that out. But we do have we have a couple of matches announced for Dominion, which is going to be really, really fun. So because of everything that went down at Resurgence and everything that, goes with it, we have, so of course, some of the matches that were made that we had talked about before, granted, given what's happening in weeks, we have our IWGP Global Championship on the line, in which we are going to have Yota Tsuji, our champion, defending the title against the Mad Lad himself and Gabe Kidd. So that should be a really good match, of course, because it's not House of Torture shenanigans. I don't think we will be seeing Yota Tsuji's twin, but I don't care. I love that at Sakura Genesis. I had such a great time with that. But speaking of Evil will be in a match against the leader of Bullet Club War Dogs, David Finlay, and a dog collar of death match. So essentially, it's going to be a dog collar match, which makes me excited. Of death. But then, of course, we continue the Hiroshi Tanahashi's retirement road, and he will be having a match against one of my personal favorite people from TNA and when he was with Joe Hendry, but it will be Hiroshi Tanahashi versus Yuya Uemura. It's going to be a lot of fun. On top of that, we also got newly made that Takeshita will also be at Dominion to defend his never openweight championship against one of our Gaijin talent in Mr. Okay, I'm going to try to pronounce this because it's Bolton Oleg. So I'm excited. This is very European man. It's going to be interesting. And reading up on the history and doing all this, they are 1-1 against each other. So this is going to be interesting, to see what happens with all of this. We also have the IWGP tag titles on the line, as we have Ishii is going to be teamed up with his stablemate Taichi to take on our current champions, members of United Empire, and Callum Newman and Great Oak.
Yeah,
That's going to be fun.
Great.
I
Oh
think
God, yes, he's so
I'm
fun.
excited.
Oh, yeah.
That's going to be fun. And then, because Hiroki Goto retained the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship at Resurgence, he will be defending his title against the next challenger, which is going to be in the form of Shingo Takagi, which makes me super excited. I'm excited. It's going to be great. It's going to be so much fun. And that is all the news that I have for you in New Japan related stuff. Of course, we got Best of the Super Juniors going on, and as soon as that's over, we have about 2 weeks before Dominion. So summer is looking great for New Japan, and I can't
wait. But Mikey, you said something happened at the media scrum after the women's match.
Right. So this is going to set up something interesting. So on the social, Izumi was giving an interview, of course, behind the cute little New Japan backdrop that they always do afterwards. And who should come congratulate her and the title but Miss B Priestley? So B congratulated Azumi. Azumi was very surprised to see B back in, and B said that she'd be seeing Azumi really soon for that title. So we might be getting an Azumi and B Priestley match for that championship in the near future, which has me excited. I can't wait.
Very good. And for Mikey and me, thank you for joining us. And
One more thing I forgot.
Europe.
So our trip to the land of the rising sun is not quite over yet, because we might be done with New Japan, but next week Adolfo and I will be back, because now we're going to switch gears and go from our strong style syndicate personas into our Oedo Bites personas, because we will be covering All-Star Grand Queendom next Monday. Yes, we're a couple weeks late, but you know what? We still want to cover because it's an important show, because lots of things happened.
Can I just... Stardom, I love you, but please get some sort of distribution deal with someone that's not that stage thing, whatever. Anyway.
The stage pride, yeah.
Anyway. So that's our show. We hope you enjoy, and we will catch you.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another Vibe Tribe production. What's gonna happen next time? Well, you're gonna have to tune in to find out. But until then, remember, take care of yourself, love one another, and as always, make sure that you keep the good times rolling. Thank you for being here, and we'll see you next time.